Right, we'll get started and admit everyone here. Right, thanks everyone for coming. So, workshop for the next 3 days, where we have a lot of signups, like 240 supposed participants. Might have to be online. I guess the others will be out in the woods or something. But in any case, the idea is that we have a small group of speakers here, right, coming from different but adjacent disciplines between computer science, empirical social science, and as you know, we will have. Sorry, you got the. Yeah, so the idea is that we will start with a series of lectures, story lectures, kind of at the level of the graduate topics course, to get us all on the same page across our neighboring fields. And then use that as a starting point to afterwards talk about our own research and hopefully kind of push research agendas at this intersection forward. Topic of the workshop is AI and the political economy of information filtering. I guess you each have your own entry point into this topic. Let me just briefly talk about how I came to this question or theme. It's a little bit different how Arushi came to it and how the rest of you came to it. So I guess in terms of research, I've done this kind of two angles that approach this. One is broadly around information filtering, which happens, I think, across tons of different domains, right? We have this in statistics, econometrics, where all these discussions around specification searching, p-hacking, publication bias, pre-registration, and so on, that's effectively about information filtering, right? It's about you get a large data set, and what you do when you do statistics is you filter that information down to kind of a reduced summary. And that's almost, I guess, the definition of statistics. But then the question is, what's a good summary, or when is this a problematic selection that's going on? And of course, you get this in other domains, like in news and search, where you have content filtering, deciding like what you get to see about the world, in a way, to the extent that our access to the world is mediated through the online sphere. It's effectively shaping a lot of our sense of what reality is. And then, of course, you have social media or other platforms with ad targeting, recommender systems, and so on. All of these I would think of as different forms of information filtering that wouldn't be necessary if you had kind of unlimited attention and information processing capacity, but is very much necessary since we don't have that. And so then the question is, what kind of selection should we do? What kind of selection is happening? Whose interests does that serve, and so on. But I think that, yeah, the fundamental tension is like information is unlimited, our attention is limited. How do we deal with that? And the selection criteria, I think, also from a normative perspective, are not obvious. Again, kind of coming more on the statistics side. Right, there's been all these discussions again about p-hacking publication bias, where the push has been to eliminate selection, or at least make selection statistically independent from whatever findings are. Which is what you should do if what you care about is the validity of classic statistical inference in the sense of size control, unbiasedness, coverage probabilities, and so on. It's a lot less clear that's what you should do if you have other related objectives. Like if for instance, the transmitted information is an input to downstream decision making, then there's a very strong case to be made that what you care about is surprising information, right? Which goes against the absence of selection. And on the other hand, if you're a priori uncertain about the validity of an information source, then in many cases you will have that surprising information will be less plausible. So that pushes you in the opposite direction, right? Where I say very extreme findings and statistics suggest that there's something wrong with the identification or analysis or data, and that makes you discount the information more. So that pushes you in the opposite direction. But I think more broad, that's kind of all from a more normative perspective, which is the perspective we usually take around statistics. But from a more positive perspective, there's kind of the political economy issue, like who gets to decide what information is selected to what ends to serve what interests, which kind of brings me to the other angle that got me into all this, which is more the political economy of AI. It's a bit of self-promotion here. My book that came out last fall, where kind of the argument in a nutshell that runs through the book is that all of AI is automated decision-making using optimization, which is not how it's always framed. But if you look into any machine learning or AI textbook, that's always the starting point. There's some numerical reward that's being maximized or loss that's being minimized over some space based on some information. And so then a lot of the debates around like the ethics and regulation of AI kind of circle around various versions of like optimization failures. Whether it's like the bias and discrimination debate, which is usually framed as an optimization failure, or the AI safety and value alignment debate, which is usually framed around the mismeasured objective and therefore information optimization failure and so on. But then what I argue there is to say that the much more first order issue is not optimization failures, which since engineers are pretty good at optimizing, it's the question of who gets to decide what's being optimized, right? So say in the social media context, do you select information that maximizes retention and ad clicks in the end, or do you select information that's promoting the democratic public sphere or teenage mental health or whatever it is? And those are very much contradictory objectives. And so the question is who decides? And who decides in actuality? It's whichever the people or institutions are that control the inputs for AI, for automated decision systems, first and foremost the training data, but also the compute, expertise, and energy. And what the book argues is that if you think there's a gap between what we normatively want to optimize, for instance, in information filtering, and what's actually being optimized, we have to close that gap somehow. And the ultimate answer would be to give the stakeholders, to give those who are being impacted a say over what those objectives are. So to build democratic control. And so I guess those for me, I guess, are two different angles how I got to this. So I'd love to bring them together and hope to learn from you throughout the next 3 days how to think about that. And so I already mentioned we have speakers from adjacent but slightly different disciplinary backgrounds. We have a lot of time, right? So we have 6 speakers, but 3 full days. And so every tutorial lecture and frontier lecture has 90 minutes allocated, which should leave also plenty of time for questions and discussion. And really the ultimate hope or goal is that we kind of develop research agendas together and push the field forward, and really have time to listen to each other too. In terms of the outline, today and tomorrow we will have the tutorial lectures, starting with Manish this morning. Then after that we'll have a sandwich lunch that should be delivered outside. So you can read the talk titles yourself. And then tomorrow and Wednesday, we will have the frontier lectures around everybody's own research. And so